Wow. 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 We have got a lot to talk about today. There has been an earthquake in the state of North Carolina, and it is going to affect everyone. Now, I apologize. You just put a cough drop in my mouth. I got rid of the cold. I got rid of the cough, but suddenly, as I'm scrambling around here, I started to cough. So I may have a little bit of an issue. Wow. If you haven't heard, we have got massive breaking news out of the state of North Carolina. Once again, we've been doing a lot of Carolina live shows lately. I have been on the phone. I have talked with a lot of people since it was breaking news. Even with some of our friends in the PATC family. I'm not going to say his name. If he pops up in the chat room, we'll talk about it. I'm sure you can figure it out. Somebody in North Carolina who actually works with legislators and all that stuff. He's been giving me the lowdown. Hopefully he pops in the chat room. Hopefully he gives us a call if he gets the opportunity. A long time PATC family member. Massive news, and I don't know where this is heading. There is a bill. Well, it is part of the budget bill in which the state of North Carolina is going to be sharing more of their gambling revenues to the public universities in the state of North Carolina. Now, yesterday, Mr. Brian Murphy, WRAL, gave us some information, and it was last night. And it was big breaking news. It was big breaking news. But how I read the news, excuse me a second here. Maybe I can survive without that cough drop. How I read the news, and I think everybody else did, was if this budget bill passes with this portion of the gambling revenue share distribution, this new part of it where it sounded like UNC Chapel Hill were eventually going to get $11 million a year out of the gambling revenue, state gambling revenues. That North Carolina State was going to get $11 million a year, and the other universities, the smaller ones, were going to get like 4 and 5. No, that's not the numbers. That's not the numbers. According, and we're going to go through this, according to projections on gambling revenue in the state of North Carolina, and in conjunction with this new way of taxing and distribution going to these public universities' athletic departments, if all that remains if the projections come out to be true, somewhere close, by 2027, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, out of this gambling state revenue, is going to get up to a little bit over $31 million. And that's going to be every year going forward, and probably going to go up. North Carolina State is going to get up about a little bit over, by the year of 2027, $31 million each. We are going to be going over this report. And it sounds like, and again, we've got PATC family members. We've got PATC, our own family members that often come into the chat, give us a phone call. We've got boots on the ground. We've got somebody there. I'm not going to name his name until he gets in the chat room, if he comes on in. But he has given me the lowdown. He says, yeah, there might be a little bit of a change in the House version, but it is most likely going to be part of the budget bill that's going to pass. This is a blessing to North Carolina State. And it gives North Carolina it gives them a lot of power. It gives them a lot of leverage It makes it easier for North Carolina to stay in the ACC. And as mind-bending as this sounds, it makes it easier for them to leave the ACC. But I got to tell you, I don't have any, what I've done thus far, after this news broke, and we're going to go over the news, is I've been talking to people, scrambling, trying to get our arms around this. I don't really have any peek around the corner, like new information, not yet. We got the North Carolina money perch. We're going to try to get some information from him. We're talking to people, the chatter behind the curtain. But this is massive news with massive implications to the ACC, to the SEC, to the Big Ten, to the Big 12, but especially to North Carolina State and to North Carolina. And this seems to be possibly the start of a new arms race, because if this bill passes, this part of the budget bill, if it all passes, other public universities are going to be knocking on the door to their legislators and say, look, can we get a little bit of that, a little bit bigger slice of that gambling revenue share? Holy smokes. Earthquake in the state of North Carolina. We are going to cover that story today. But the only other story that we're going to cover during the monologue, because I want to get to your phone calls as soon as possible, there is another breaking news. It just keeps coming. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. Breaking news, breaking news. We've got the name of the enforcement arm. The enforcement arm, when this settlement happens, when it becomes official, when the judge approves it, we have the name of the enforcement arm that's going to rule with an iron fist, supposedly, in this settlement. Anyway, so we got a lot to get to here. Ryan Willie, Wisconsin is screwed. Haywood is out for the year. Sorry, Ryan Willie, I feel bad for you, man. Not a lot of good news coming out of Wisconsin. Thank you for the super chat. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for your generosity, ongoing generosity. Help us keep the lights on here. Now, look, Jonathan Price. Wow. If true, the Carolina schools are going nowhere. Jonathan could be right. He could be right. We're going to go over it. He could be right. Or, look, at the end of the day, North Carolina politically is not all aligned. I'm talking about North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You've got a lot of you've got a lot of people in there that want North Carolina to join the SEC. You've got a minority faction that wants them to stay in the Big Ten. You want them to join the Big Ten. You've always had that faction. It has gotten smaller over the years that North Carolina should stay in the ACC. But is that faction reawakened today? One of the things that UNC is going to have to consider is, oh yeah, this helps us a lot. North Carolina State helps them a lot. But does it really help the ACC? Again, as we go on here, as the Big Ten and the SEC make their play-in games where they're going to get a lot of money. They're going to be scheduling agreement probably. The Big Ten's new media deal in 2030 is probably going to be gigantic. Is the ACC going to remain a viable home for UNC Chapel Hill? You know, this doesn't help Syracuse, Boston College. The bottom half of the ACC, when it comes to resources, continues to fall further and further behind the bottom half of the SEC, the bottom half of the Big Ten, and they may even be dropping further behind the bottom half of the Big 12 because of the unequal revenue sharing and all that stuff, right? The viewership and the Success Initiative. A conference like that doesn't remain viable. You saw what happened. You're looking at it. You're seeing it. You're seeing what's happened with the level of football, basketball this year. So North Carolina still, again, in a twisted way of looking at it, but I think it's accurate. Let me know if I'm wrong. But this big breaking news that we're going to go over in the monologue makes it easier for North Carolina to stay in the ACC. It makes it easier for North Carolina to leave the ACC. As crazy as, I mean, I think they control, there's no question about it, that North Carolina, when this, it sounds like this is going to pass. This part of the budget bill, it might get changed a little bit. But if this sucker passes, North Carolina is going to be able to control their destiny for the first time in a long time because, okay, North Carolina going to the Board of Governors after this passes, if they got an invite from the SEC, the Big Ten, or both, and the Board of Governors is looking for a financial plan, make sure that North Carolina State is okay. This is easy peasy, man. North Carolina just has to tell the Board of Governors, Peter Hands, the president, and the 24 members, look, you want to make a little bit of adjustment on the gambling revenue? You want to talk to, we'll talk to our representatives, North Carolina, UNC. North Carolina State has a lot of powerful legislators. They'll talk to theirs. We'll get it passed. We'll make a little of an adjustment. North Carolina State can get a little bit more of that gambling revenue. We'll make a little less because we're going to make a whole bunch in the SEC or the Big Ten in future years. This massive news greases the skids for North Carolina. North Carolina State is now safe from falling off the cliff. But it also makes it easier for North Carolina to stay, at least that faction of people that want them to stay in the ACC. We're going to go through it all. But North Carolina, when this passes, if it passes, and it sounds like it's going to in some shape or form, this is going to give North Carolina, for the first time in a long time, power. Power to control their own destiny. Florida State and Clemson, we're going to be talking about them. Going to be talking about Virginia. We're going to be talking about the SEC and the Big Ten in the second half of our monologue. Let me go through a roll call, and then we're going to get to another big story before we hit that massive story. Bruce Harris is in the house. Cornhusker Skaven, yes, Mr. Monkey says, John Till. Let's go. My prop, the Big Lubbock. Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina. Place your bets. UNC went from zero gambling revenue to 10%, and it's a lot of money. UNC, the athletic department, makes in the low 40s, 40 million a year when it comes to conference payouts. They're on the verge of getting about 11, 14, and then up to 31 million a year on the gambling revenue. That is massive. Jonathan Price, Mr. Monkey says, Coy is in the house. Coy is in the house. MBM, Oklahoma State Cowboy, Opticat is in the house. Good day. Rob Allen, the architect. Eric Phipps is in the house. Steel Austin, go Utes. SF All In Tiger fan. Greg, are you singing today? Probably not, but I might have to come up with a song here because of this breaking news. I don't know what song fits this breaking news. If you got a suggestion, let me know in the chat. Put it down. What song fits what is happening today? And I might think about it. Gerald McKinley is in the house. Kenneth Stromness is here. Coy, Daniel Gygax, Mr. Mountaineer, another Mountaineer, Jeff Morgan is in the house. T5 Terps, Les Austin Jr., go Blue. Cranky Tiger, what is going on this afternoon? Holy smokes. Got to keep your head on a swivel. Clinton Moses, Lorenzo Haynes is in the house. Big Gunshot, Bobby Hansen, Rock Chalk, Vox Quindaro is in the house. Jose, Fight On, USC Trojan. Mr. Clemson, Bo Weevil is in the house. A lot of people. Deadeye is all good, 720. If UNC stays, does that mean the Big Ten can get Miami, Florida State blend? We'll talk about everything. We're going to talk about everything, but we're gonna need a little time to let this marinate. We're gonna need a little bit of time to let this all settle. This could change everything. We've talked about how, I put it out there. I gave us our best shot where the people have told me where this is heading. We also said there's a lot of variables out there. There's political variables. There's economic variables. There's this. Holy smokes. Go Black 45 is here. Stephen Clark is here. Movie Time Blues is here. Healing, Florida is here. Finally Tune is in the house. Charlie Atwood, Chris Kenny. NEP Digits afternoon, people. Hopefully I did not miss anybody. If I did, I apologize. We got to get into this, though. We got to get into this. If you do a super chat, of course, I'll get to your comment as soon as I can. We're going to open up the phone lines as soon as I can. But the first breaking news, Jay Go Blue is in the house. The first, hold on, everybody. I did not have this set up. I've been scrambling. I have been scrambling like you would not believe. I've been on the phone, texting. Look at this breaking news. Once again, Daniel Libet, Eben, Novi, William, breaking news. Sportical. This just came out a little bit before we came on live. Power 5 incorporates new college sports enforcement entity. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. In a further step toward the anticipated approval of the House versus NCAA settlement, the Power 5 conferences have officially established the new legal entity to oversee enforcement of the updated athlete compensation rules in Division I. On Monday, College Sports Commission LLC was registered as a limited liability company with the Delaware Secretary of State. College Sports Commission. The entity whose name had not been disclosed until now, is expected to be the central body in a revamped regulatory framework. As reported by Yahoo Sports in February, this LLC is meant to serve as the enforcement arm within the new governance structure for college athletics ushered in by the House settlement. Two sources familiar with the matter confirmed the Sportico that College Sports Commission is indeed the entity. An official announcement is expected within the week. Delaware is a popular state for LLC formation due to the state's privacy, tax advantage, and business-friendly reputation. A spokesperson for the new entity did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Okay, so the name is College Sports Commission. We have PATC. We're going to call it the Commission. So when your team cheats, when Jay Go Blue, Michigan, D5 Terps, Maryland, Jeff Morgan, West Virginia, Vox Quindaro, Rock Chalk Jayhawks, when one of your team cheats and we report it at PATC, we're going to be saying your team is heading for the Commission. That's going to be the name. College Sports Commission. I love the name. I love the name Commission. That is going to be the enforcement arm under the new settlement agreement, the structure, in which everyone in your school voted for it. So don't be complaining to me. Don't be complaining to me when you are caught with a McDonald's bag of 150,000 K, and I catch you. The fat guy from Minnesota is driving around in his beater, and he sees the transaction, and he follows the car. He writes down the license plate number, and he gives it to the College Sports Commission. And the evil Badgers and the evil Hawkeyes, the evil Cornhuskers, and the rest of you get caught. Don't blame me. Don't blame me. Your school voted for it. So, okay, so that's the breaking news that I wanted to cover, but we got to get to North Carolina. We got to get to North Carolina. Preston from Greensboro. 31 million is a lot, but still not as much as the eventual gap between the ACC and the P2. Why not still go to the P2 and have even more? In other words, buy ACC. Well, Preston from Greensboro, first of all, thank you for your incredible generosity once again. Thank you for this incredible super chat. And your comment is spot on. That $31 million is a lot of money. And it's going to help pay for a lot of things. North Carolina does not want to cut their sports. They don't want it. Bubba Cunningham, they do not want to do it. North Carolina is a proud athletic department. They do incredible. They have a huge bandwidth of sports. Culturally, they don't want to cut a thing. This $31 million is going to help pay. Eventually, it starts before 2027. We're going to go through the article, but eventually it's going to get into the low 30s. And it's going to help, it's going to help with the Bill Belichick hire and everything that they're doing with the football program. It gets North Carolina above the stratification line. It gets them above the stratification line. But Preston is correct. The gap will continue to grow. If you got a chance to get to a P2, you get to it. You get to it. I agree with Preston. All I'm saying is the faction of North Carolina internally that wants them to stay in the ACC, they're going to have a louder voice now. But if North Carolina if they're absolutely committed to leaving, and there is a lot of indications that they are, buckle up, brace for impact, because this actually makes it a lot easier for them to leave in multiple different ways. And it gives them more options, in my opinion. Now, I don't quite have the info that I want yet. Again, I said earlier in the program, I've talked to a lot of people. I've talked to people that are part of the PATC family that are down there in North Carolina who does legislative work. They're going to pop in at some time, maybe not today, but sometime this week, and get them on the phone and they'll explain it to you. We've been talking to those people. And it sure sounds like this is going to pass. I mean, it's going to be part of the budget bill. And the budget bill is going to pass. There's North Carolina state political power that is behind this. This is going to grease the skids for North Carolina. It gives them mobility. It gives them empowerment. It gives them the power. I tend to agree with Preston, but we cannot ignore that there is going to be some rumbling, and I'm sure Preston will confirm it. There is an ACC historic faction that don't want to leave. And this helps their argument, at least for a while. Doc Gibbs, this certainly eases the immediate pressure to jump on the ACC. It also weakens a UNC Chapel attempt to end run the North Carolina Bog. Somewhat opposite of Greg's view. I don't quite understand that. They're not going to be able to do an end run around the Board of Governors. We just don't think the Board of Governors is going to provide a unbearable hurdle for Chapel Hill, for North Carolina, and now less than ever. Morris Simmons. Hello, everyone. Gold Nose 2027. Preston from Greensboro. Absolutely, but the ACC we loved died years ago. $21 bucket 21. My first thought was, this is what allows the UNC to separate from NC State. It's like, look, mom and dad, little bro is okay. He gets extra money, so now I can go join the SEC. I agree with 21 bucket 21. I mean, I think this greases the skids to I am so interested to hear what you guys say in the phone calls. Let's get to the story. A lot of people don't know what the heck we're talking about. Thank you so much, Preston. I appreciate the super chat so very much. Now, this was yesterday, even though it says today on the bottom of the screen there. We're going to go through yesterday's information that was released last evening, and then we're going to give you the monster update that happened before we came on live. Senate budget mandates UNC, North Carolina State play in-state teams, and it doubles the sports betting tax. North Carolina Senate Republicans plan to increase the amount of tax revenue that flows to the athletic departments, not the university, not the auxiliary departments in these universities, the athletic departments. That is your PATC shot number one. The amount of tax revenue that flows to the athletic departments at UNC system schools. Add North Carolina State to that distribution and double the tax rate on sports betting operators as part of its budget proposal. The budget would also mandate, now it's a give and take, and I think North Carolina and North Carolina State would be happy to give, because they are taking a lot. North Carolina State play basketball games against other schools in the UNC system. Senate Republicans released their 2-year budget Monday evening. They plan to pass it this week. Republicans have a big majority in the Senate. The proposal could mean tens of millions for athletic departments at UNC and North Carolina State, just as the schools are expected to begin sharing revenue with athletes. Legal online sports wagering launched in North Carolina on March 11, 2024. The 8 legal operators have paid more than $135 million in taxes through the end of March 2025. Sports bettors in the state are expected to claim winnings on their taxes without being able to write off the losses. The increase from an 18% tax rate to 36% tax rate would put North Carolina among the top in the nation. New York 51, Hampshire 51, Delaware 50, Illinois 40, Pennsylvania 36. The Sports Betting Alliance, which represents operators such as DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, and Fanatics, declined comment Monday evening. All 4 of those operators are taking bets in the state of North Carolina. The proposed budget would make significant changes to the distribution of tax revenue. Currently, the athletic departments at 13 UNC systems receive $300,000 from tax revenue from sports betting and then receive 20% of the remaining proceeds after another initial required distributions are made. UNC and North Carolina State are not currently included. But under the budget proposal, the schools would receive more but unequal amounts. The athletic departments at Elizabeth City State University, Fayetteville State University, University of North Carolina at Pembroke, and the Winston-Salem State University would receive $500,000. That's going to be a year projected, I believe. North Carolina A&T, UNC Asheville, UNC Greensboro, UNC Wilmington, and Western Carolina would receive $1 million. Appalachian State, East Carolina, North Carolina, UNC Charlotte would receive $1.5 million. That is each, ladies and gentlemen. That is each, ladies and gentlemen. After those schools are paid and other required distributions, 20% of the remaining proceeds would be split among those same schools. 10% each would go to North Carolina and North Carolina State in the North Carolina Major Events, Games, and Attractions Fund. The remaining money would go to the state's general fund. North Carolina took in about $128.5 million in tax revenue from operators in the first 12 months. Under the Senate proposal, the first $17 million would be allocated. That would leave North Carolina and North Carolina State to each get 10% of the $111.5 million remaining revenue, or about $11.5 million each. So that was the big story last night. That was the big story last night. We had $11.5 million. That number, that figure was circling around everywhere. Wow. $11.5 million for North Carolina State and North Carolina, year after year after year. But the story only grows. But we're going to get through this article first. And that's without considering any growth in the state rate, tax rate, or the tax revenue. It is our feeling that the success of the sports wagering program itself is something that has inured to the benefit of many of the campuses, and we wanted to extend it to other campuses, said Senate Leader Phil Berger, a Rockingham County Republican, and I believe he's a big O. He's a big old North Carolina State Wolfpack. Let me know if I got it wrong, but I think, yeah. My prof, this helps Appalachian State in the Sun Belt. Absolutely. Absolutely, my prof. He nails it. He absolutely nails it. The budget would require North Carolina State to play at least 3 regular season or exhibition basketball games against each UNC system school at the NCAA Division II level by the 39-40 season, and 2 regular season games against UNC system schools competing at the NCAA Division I level by the same year. There are 4 Division II schools, 11 Division I schools, including North Carolina State in the UNC system. The budget doesn't specify men's or women's basketball or both. And finally, in this article of last night, then we're going to get to the news today. Previously, several lawmakers have introduced bills that would use the sports wagering tax revenue for various other programs. One measure, House Bill 8384, would use the revenue from sports betting to offset a tax deduction for members of the National Guard. Another bill would dip into the revenue for stipends for high school coaches, and yet another would direct more of the money toward the gambling addiction prevention services. Now, for the big breaking news of today. That was all yesterday that we were not able to cover because it broke after we did our live show. Today, the big breaking news is this. Brian Murphy, don't take it from me. Don't take it from me. Brian Murphy, WRAL, legislative estimate with changes to tax rate and distribution is at North Carolina. North Carolina State will get $24.4 million from sports wagering revenue in fiscal year 25 and 26, and $31.5 million in 26 and 27. Now, we will further explain that here. We're going to just hold on, everybody. Hold on. Because this is going to rock your world. I'm telling you. Hold on, everybody. ECU, Charlotte, Appalachian projected to receive $4.1 million and $5.1 million over the next 2 years. So you might be saying to yourself, all right, okay, Greg, I got you. So it's not going to be $11.5 million to North Carolina and $11.5 million to North Carolina State. It's going to be a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit more than $15 million each, right? A little bit more than $15 million each. You're going to go $31.5 million, and then you're going to cut that in half because they're going to get equal share between North Carolina and North Carolina State. Not so fast. That's not what it means. That is not what it means. Don't take it from me. Legislative estimate with changes to the tax rate and distribution is that North Carolina State will get $24.4 million from sports wagering in fiscal year 25-26 and $31.5 million in 26-27. But they're not sharing that $31.5 million. They're not sharing that $31.5 million. It was asked to Brian Murphy. It was asked each. Brian Murphy each. And we at Peek Around the Corner got it confirmed. It's each. ECU, East Carolina, Charlotte, App, they're getting $4.1 million, $5.1 million over the next 2 years each. So those three schools, Sunbelt, AAC, are going to be helped out greatly. The $31.5 million by 26 and 27, that's each to North Carolina State and to North Carolina. That is massive. Again, before I get to these very generous super chats, and then I want to talk a little bit more about it, then we're going to get to your phone calls. Again, North Carolina, North Carolina State, they both get in the low 40 million when it comes to ACC payouts. That is media payouts, NCAA tourney money, bowl money. Now, all that is going to change because you have this unequal revenue sharing, viewership, bowl, success initiative. So these numbers might even dip a little bit. It might not be in the mid 40 million on conference payouts for North Carolina and North Carolina State. It might go up a little bit. It might go down a little bit. But we know that Clemson and Miami and Florida State are going to get a lot of that viewership money, the unequal revenue part of that deal, that ACC deal. $31 million each year projected from 2026, 27 being beyond. That is a massive amount of money. That is something that you'd want to get out of a sports capital deal, but they don't have to pay it back. Let's get to some more super chats. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts on this, like my real thoughts on this. And then I want to hear from you. This is massive news. John Till, thank you so much for your generosity. North Carolina needs to take this as a sign to strike while the iron is hot and go to the SEC. If I'm North Carolina State, I call Duke and the Big Ten on a three-way and say us, Miami, and GT. Interesting. Thank you, John Till. I think there's going to be a large segment of people, at least people outside of North Carolina, that are going to agree with you. Once this budget bill passes, and this is part and parcel of the budget deal. Thank you, John Till. I appreciate your generosity once again. Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina. I've been betting the direct opposite of Greg the Gold, and I owe a lot of taxes today. Wow. Thank you for the super chat, Preston from Greensboro. I do appreciate it so very much. Okay. All right. So, what do we got then? What do we got? Over the last, I would say about 6 months, we at PATC have been consistent in saying that the Board of Governors, that hurdle, it is a hurdle, but it's not as big as we thought it was going to be. We've been told, if North Carolina really gets an invitation, a potential invitation to the SEC, to the Big Ten, or both, that the Board of Governors, they're going to work it out. They're going to work it out. North Carolina State's going to get something. So we don't think it's a hurdle, but it is one that North Carolina is going to be able to jump over. Today, I think the Board of Governors hurdle is a one that North Carolina can step over with ease. I mean, it's almost like this is the financial deal. It's not happening in the Board of Governors. It's happening in the congressional. But again, the congressional leaders and the Board of Governors, They're swimming in the same river. There's a lot of political back and forth. They appoint all that is interconnected. It's separate but connected. So this is almost like the Board of Governors financial deal for North Carolina State. And if this doesn't satisfy it, all they have to do is move. Just have to move the numbers a little bit. North Carolina, okay, we won't take $31 million a year, starting in 26. We'll take 25. We'll give the extra 5, 6 to North Carolina State. Bada bing, bada boom, done deal. So, at this point in time, now, unfortunately, all this breaking news, this is all breaking news. So we've been scrambling, but I haven't really been able to get into those long conversations. And I will. I'm going to poke and prod. I'm going to bother people. That's what I do. I have a grating personality, curiosity. I'm going to poke and prod. But for right now, on April 15th, just a week after I put out what we think is going to happen here on April 8th, I think this, in some ways, I'm going to contradict myself, but the ACC faction in the ACC country in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, they're going to probably raise their voices a little bit and saying, look, we can make this work. We should stick with Wake Forest. We should stick with Duke. We should stick with North Carolina State. We got to make this stick. I don't think we can shut the door. I mean, that's probably reality, right? But overall, you're getting $31 million extra starting in 26. We're going to get to your phone calls in a moment. I just got to get this out here. You're getting $31 million a year starting in 26, 27, according to projections, and that number is probably going to go up. $165 million, a $147 million, or a $129 million exit fee. That doesn't seem much at all, does it? That is so doable, it's ridiculous. Come on. Honestly, come on. I don't think the Board of Governors is much of an issue. Not anymore. I don't think the exit fee is much of an issue anymore. I know that sounds crazy because it's $165 million or $147 million or $129 million. But when you're making that extra money like that, and if you go to the SEC and you're going to make more money right out you would not be doing your job if you did not seriously look at a quick exit for North Carolina. If this passes, if this portion of the budget bill passes with minor or no changes, and it sounds like that's what's going to happen, I think this opens up the possibility of North Carolina leaving earlier than later, more than ever. Again, more money greases the skids, not less. If you are truly committed to leaving, because the ACC, you don't think is going to be a viable conference in the early 2030s. More money greases the skids. The more money you know that is coming in, it's easier to put it out. You can take the $31 million. You're going to get more. You're going to get more next. You get more. North Carolina's going to get. We're going to talk about North Carolina. We're going to get to North Carolina. North Carolina is going to get more right away. Then they're going to get a little bit more. Then it's going to get up to $31 million in 26. You take that $31 million and you just target it for the 165 that you got to pay out. You get there in 5 years. You take whatever money you need to take from the university, pay the 165. Remember, the ACC has to accept it in accordance to the ACC settlement with the courts with Florida State and Clemson. And then you earmark that extra gambling money that goes to the auxiliary fund wherever you took it out of the University of North Carolina. It's a done deal. It's easy peasy. So, at the end of the day, with this big breaking news, I think the opportunity to leave extremely early is now there, because I haven't been thinking it's going to happen this year. But my goodness, this is the financial plan to give to the Board of Governors that North Carolina needs to change conference affiliation. You got North Carolina with the Carolina Blue Matters, the law firm that. This is right in their wheelhouse. They can easily get this done. This is easy now. This is easy for North Carolina. And then you got North Carolina State. They're in the catbird seat. I mean, they're sitting there. They're going to get $31 million extra. If North Carolina leaves, they're probably going to get a little bit more. They don't have to worry about an 8. Now, of course, North Carolina State's going to do what is best for North Carolina State. A viable ACC or a viable Big 12. What is more viable? And then let's talk about Florida State and Clemson. Then I promise we'll get to your phone calls. What do you think? Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you all will tell me where I'm wrong. You probably will, and that's fine. That's what this show's for. To tell the fat guy from Minnesota how wrong he is once again. But I don't know. I can't see Florida State. Again, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm just giving you guys my opinion here. I haven't had time. I'm going to get into some long conversations, and then we're going to have some peek around the corner stuff here in the next few days, hopefully. But I don't know how Florida State can see this differently. I don't see how Clemson can see this differently than I. I know I'm not Florida State. They're not me. But they got to be thinking to themselves, what the hell? This is going to make it easier for North Carolina. Everything. Their exit fee, the Board of Governors. It's going to be easier for them to jump ship earlier. And that's exactly what Clemson and Florida State want. Clemson and Florida State does not want North Carolina to remain in the ACC. No. So this is massive news. It is. It has an incredible rippling effect throughout everything. And it sounds like, and I don't want to give up the person's name. I did not get the person's okay, but somebody in the PATC family who visits us a lot during the year. A lot of you know who I'm talking about. He's a North Carolina State Wolfpack. He works in that field. Hint, hint, wink, wink, wink. He believes, and another person I've talked to says this is going to pass. Like, this is going to be part of the budget deal. Maybe a little bit of a change. Maybe a little bit of a change. Maybe North Carolina only makes $28 million in 27. Maybe the tax rate changes a little bit. But whatever. A big day for North Carolina State. A big day for North Carolina. And depending on how you see this, how it affects, it's a big, 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 massive day for some other schools that just got a massive victory in the courts. Let's get to your phone calls. Let's get to your phone calls right now. I am so interested to see what you guys got. I can see you guys taking this either way. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Give me a call. Massive news. No question about it. Undeniable. Undeniable that this is unbelievable, massive news. I'm getting a lot of... There's news coming out on the ACC, or not the ACC, but the NCAA House settlement.
From
Rick.
Rick, thanks for calling, sir. I appreciate it. The floor is yours.
I totally agree with you. This is most significant news. It's going to have a big impact on college football all over the nation, because every state can do what North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, is doing, right?
Well, not every state. Not the state of Minnesota.
You don't gamble?
State of Minnesota, we can't even gamble in the state of Minnesota. So,
yeah, but that's a couple of votes. That's a couple of votes away.
We're always a couple of votes away. We're always it's Rick. It's just another example of this studio sits in the middle of Loserville City, and I am the mayor. We can't even get that passed. We're so far behind the rest of the country. But I understand what you're saying, Rick. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, well, PJ will have to get to the state legislature and let him know he can't row his boat the way the Tarheels can row their boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the big thing. This is it gives North Carolina, and obviously to a degree, North Carolina State, some freedom to choose.
Yeah.
Directions that they want to go or not go. I'm not sure what direction they'll want to go and when. That's.
I guess in theory, it may open up a little bit more opportunity for the Big Ten to pitch their, to go after North Carolina. I mean, if North Carolina's getting $31 million and maybe they don't need the full share, you know what I'm saying? It might give Big Ten a little bit more of an opportunity, although we have heard that the SEC is the chalk for a number of reasons, not just because of the full share versus the half a share, but that maybe again, North Carolina they've got different factions there, North Carolina. So, but the ones that want to get out, they're probably going to speak quicker. They're going to be probably speaking as loud as the ones who say, "Hold on a second, maybe we can stay in the ACC."
Well, I bet with in the case of the Seminoles, having their college at the state capital of Florida, Tallahassee, right?
What was that again?
Tallahassee is the capital of Florida, right?
Yep.
So with the Seminoles having their campus across the street from state legislature, they gamble in Florida, I think, right?
I don't know what. I'm sure they do.
I would imagine they'll be running across the street to say, hey, look what North Carolina's doing.
Yeah.
What a great idea.
Yeah. I think you're onto something. I think a lot of people are going to be having a lot of conversations with their legislatures.
And then as far as the enforcement arm of the NCAA, that's something they should have done decades ago. Because what it does is they got an LLC, a limited liability corporation, set up in Delaware.
Yep.
You're not gonna sue. Nobody's gonna sue them.
Yeah, and it's not part of the NCAA. It's separate.
Well, that's because an LLC is an entity of its own. It's got a life of its own.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna sue them. Well, you can sue them, but you're not gonna get anything.
Yeah.
So what they did was just said, here, we'll pass this off to somebody that can't be sued, as opposed to us who can be sued.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I still, we've got the name of it, right? College Sports Commission. I would like to know how much these the money's coming from the conferences here. So how much are they going to be staffed? How many people are they going to have on, like those sort of things? What type of powers are they going to have? An investigation, and there's going to be an appeal process, and they said the appeal process is going to go quickly, but those are detailed. At least we got the name, Rick. The College Sports Commission. We've got the name. That's a step forward.
College Sports Commission. Don't forget the LLC, because that's the most important part.
You're right. Yeah. Limited liability. Yep.
And then, they'll come up with rules and they'll enforce them, and that's all good. That's all a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. You and I have talked before. You can't have rules. You got to have rules.
Yeah.
They got rules. They got an enforcement.
Well, it ain't gonna work though. I mean, it ain't gonna work unless they get what we've talked. I mean, none of this is gonna work unless they get a limited antitrust or protection, or if they do the old CBA and all, and it's all collective bargain, one way or the other. Because if they don't get one way or the other, eventually this is all going to collapse. But for now,
you're absolutely correct again.
Yeah,
that is exactly what will happen.
Yeah,
they'll either get the carve out or they won't.
Yeah, and
the carve out gives them the real protection that they need, and not getting the carve out doesn't give them the protection.
Exactly. Yep.
And therefore, it rests with the players to decide.
Yep.
Well, and it's only April.
Yeah. Oh no, this we got April is gonna be April's already been, and it's going to be crazy. The second half of April is going to be crazy, and May is going to be crazy. May is the month, I believe, Rick, that we're going to get some good, really sound reporting about ACC country during the ACC meetings. This is what I've been told, and I believe it. So May, I think, is the month that we're going to be updating. We're going to have emergency live shows and all. Not that anything imminent is going to happen, even with this news. But just, we're going to get some reporting about how people are feeling, leaks, all that stuff. Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, no, that's pretty much it. But just in closing, I really want to compliment the callers on your show yesterday. Man, they were good.
I'm sure they were. I'm sure, but I can't remember right now. What were they?
I think it was an Auburn guy.
Oh yeah. Auburn. Yes, great. And Morris Simmons. Yes.
Yeah. That was a great show. I hope they call back again.
Yeah, I hope they do too. Yep. That was a great show.
Thanks for taking the call.
You got it.
We'll talk to you later.
Appreciate it. Fantastic call by Rick once again. Roger Dodger. First you said $11.5 million each for North Carolina State. Then Brian Murphy said $24 million and $35 million. I doubt it's going to be $31.5 million. I did explain that earlier in the show. The number $11.5 million was the number last night. Brian Murphy gave an update today. Said, don't take it from me. Legislative estimates is that UNC North Carolina State will get $24.4 million from sports wagering revenue, 25 and 26, and $31.5 million in 26-27, and that is each. Now, these are projections. Projections of the gambling revenue, and based upon the tax rates that are in this portion of the budget bill. So it ain't going to be exactly $31.5 million. It ain't going to be exactly $4.1 million for App State, but somewhere around there. We're going to just use those figures. But yeah, the story last night was $11.5 million. We went through the article of last night. But the reporting has changed, and so we follow reporting on this. Big gun shop, I'd go to the SEC if I was North Carolina. Lottery, the new gold rush. Nico to North Carolina. Go Black 45. How does this affect North Carolina and Virginia appearing to leave? I do not think it affects the pairing. I don't think it affects the pairing. It might affect the timing. But then again, Virginia has their own issues. I mean, how is Virginia going to be able to come up with 165? I'm sure they would if they have an SEC invite or a Big Ten invite. But this does help North Carolina. It helps them be able to control their own. They were already the top domino piece. North Carolina doesn't have to wait for any other domino to fall. They're the first to fall for the SEC or the Big Ten, if you take Notre Dame out of the equation. So when you have this type of news where North Carolina is going to get $31.5 million, somewhere close to that, 27 and beyond, you're looking at you can internally at Chapel Hill You can get the 165 million, and then you can earmark your first 4 years, 5 years, whatever you need for the gambling revenue. Earmark it back to the auxiliary. You can do this. You can make it work. There is no excuse. The 165 million, the 147 million, the 129 million, whenever North Carolina pulls the trigger, that exit fee is no longer the excuse. It isn't. Now it's about will. It's about will, political will. There's a lot of different cooks in the kitchen. Now, that prior guy, the chairman of the Board of Regents, the Board of Regents don't have a lot of power. They have really no power over conference affiliation. But Pryor allegedly kind of has a big mouth at Chapel Hill. Allegedly. Could be wrong. And he's pro SEC. So, wow. North Carolina, if they've got the will and if they get the invitation, there's no more excuses for North Carolina. And we've already figured it out. I mean, Wild Jute, Moen, Nathan Brown, they've done a great job at College Football Mafia, Daniel Gygax. They're talking about, and I agree with them. I love to disagree with those guys. We can just battle it out on their show. But I agree with them. The numbers tell the story. The earlier, the better for North Carolina. The earlier they go to the SEC, the better. It's just the way it is. It is. That's just, even though the cost of exit goes down $18 million a year, they're going to make more than that as an SEC member. So the earlier they get out, the better it is. And now with this, $31.5 million starting 26, and before that, they're going to pocket millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. So it's about, can you get yourself together? Can you get yourself aligned? Can you overcome the faction that wants to stay in the ACC? Can you overcome the faction that wants to go to the Big Ten? SEC faction of North Carolina is the most powerful faction, we believe, we've been told. So, if you can just get the political will, the consensus, the Board of Governors ain't going to be a problem. How can that be a problem after this? It ain't going to be a problem. Now, the outstanding issue is, I happen to believe, and I might be wrong, I might turn out to be absolutely wrong, but I don't think the SEC is going to pull the trigger until, man, they got a lot of issues to settle here. That college football playoff, that governance issue, this settlement, these are, you want to be 4 power conferences until all this is done. So I think all this is set, but North Carolina and North Carolina has been working on this. They're not starting from scratch. We said this was going to be the year of Bubba. We said that in October, November, and December of last year. They wanted more money. They needed more money. They were looking at private capital. They're probably not looking at it anymore, right? Probably not looking at it anymore. We'll see. Maybe they were told that, and who knows how much North Carolina, I mean, they're talking to, look, North Carolina, Chapel Hill are always talking to the people in the legislative House, the Senate and the House of North Carolina. North Carolina State is doing the same thing. So they've been working this, man. They've been using their proxies. They're trying to get this done. And it looks like they're going to get it done. The phone lines are wide open. 763-260-1333. Give us a call. Again, I think this massive story can affect the timing. I think it can make everything happen quicker than I believed it could happen. However, I still don't believe anything is imminent. I would be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked if it was imminent, because there are a bunch of big issues. I don't think anybody wants to do anything right now. Don't want to rock the boat. And that's another thing, right? Would the gambling revenue for the state of North Carolina go up if North Carolina went to the SEC? Yeah, it probably would. Maybe not by a lot, because that gambling money is pretty much everything, right? Carolina Panthers. You're probably going to get a little bit more juice out of the college betting if North Carolina went to the SEC. And in turn, a little bit more money would go to North Carolina and North Carolina State. I mean, on the margins. On the margins. Justin Cook, North Carolina State to where? Maybe in the North, and maybe in the ACC. Maybe in the ACC. Maybe they stay where they are, or maybe they go to the Big 12. We at PATC reported. John Shear of Arizona reported. Arizona Authority 247. We both reported basically at the same time. We both got information that Brett Yormark wants North Carolina State. Yeah, you've got the Louisville, you got the Virginia Tech, but that North Carolina State has to be in that mix. That's what Brett Yormark wants. He wants that. He wants North Carolina State. Now, again, if the SEC and the Big Ten, when they poach, it's going to be a battle between the ACC and the Big 12 and who's going to be able to poach who. And we're really not going to know the lay of the land until we see what the SEC does, the Big Ten does, what Notre Dame does. But you can see in North Carolina State making this extra money every year, that is going to be a much more healthier, viable North Carolina State, a much more attractive North Carolina State. But then again, we believe Brett Yormark, we know that Brett Yormark wants the Wolfpack.
Call from
Tristan 5.
Tristan 5, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. I appreciate it.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
Hey, listen, I wanted to talk about this situation with North Carolina real quick.
You got it.
And I was thinking about the Big Ten. If it turns out that North Carolina goes to the SEC, then I guess I have a question for you. What do you think the Big Ten would do in regards to trying to increase their presence in the Mid-Atlantic? Do you think they would just give up on the idea altogether, or are there some other schools in Virginia and North Carolina that they might go for?
I'm sorry. Are you saying that what are the Big Ten going to do, or?
Yeah, what do you think that they would do? Like, would they give up on trying to get schools in Virginia and North Carolina, or would they pursue other schools like maybe Duke or Virginia Tech, or who knows? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So if it goes the way we think it's going to go, where North Carolina, Virginia are going to go to the SEC, we did an April 8th show where we went through the scenarios, and because I want to put something on the board, because it's just a lot easier to talk about it if you guys think, if you know where I'm coming from at this current point. I think Duke is possibly in the mix, but again, if North Carolina, Virginia goes, we think Florida State and Clemson are going to go with them to the SEC.
Right.
So if we're correct on that, and we may end up being wrong, but if that all happens, if the SEC goes big, then we think all eyes turn to Notre Dame, and depending on what Notre Dame does, that Big Ten is going to take their cue. So if Notre Dame decides to jump in because they're going to lose their scheduling agreement and everything that we went through, we think it's going to be a Notre Dame Miami situation for the Big Ten. If Notre Dame still says no, then it's going to open up Miami, Georgia Tech, Miami, Duke, Miami something. So Duke is one of those scenarios that we think is viable, but it's a longer shot than other. So would they in the future go after any? So I had a conversation with somebody, the chatter behind the curtain type of person, and there's a lot of like a Duke and Stanford they're monster research universities that are in a different universe in the Big Ten.
Right.
And maybe in the future, if Duke doesn't come in as a full member, if Stanford don't come in as a full member, and right now, we don't have either one of them coming in as a full member for now, maybe there can be some sort of affiliated programs that come into the Big Ten. That's a possibility. But so to answer your question, other than the Duke scenario, I don't see any other attempts in the near future for the Big Ten to get into the Mid-Atlantic. I don't see North Carolina State. I have heard nothing on Virginia Tech. A little bit on Duke.
Okay. Well, so I was saying all that. I wanted to hear what you had to say, and I think I agree with what you're saying. The only one that's even really a possibility at this point would be Duke. Greg, if they don't end up with Duke, let's say that they go with Notre Dame and Miami as their next targets, and then that works, and they get them in the Big Ten. I'm concerned, Greg, that at some point down the road, and this is way down the road, this isn't like in the near future, but if the SEC ends up with a couple of schools in North Carolina and a couple of schools in Virginia, there might come a day where Maryland might reconsider their Big Ten membership and choose to go into the SEC. And I just am of the opinion that the Big Ten has to fight for the Mid-Atlantic, Greg. They can't just surrender it to the SEC. They can't do that.
Well, you make a great point. I mean, the Big Ten, we don't talk this. I don't talk about this enough. Hopefully, I have made it clear that the Big Ten, if you put Notre Dame aside, that North Carolina is their biggest target. North Carolina, Virginia. For all the same reasons, they're the biggest targets for the SEC. So the power, the influence, the value of getting to the Mid-Atlantic, those big states, growing states, politically tied states, international students tied to Virginia, North Carolina, and the Mid-Atlantic states of Duke and all that is recognized by the university presidents in the SEC and the Big Ten, not to mention research and all that. So I agree with you on all that. It becomes. I mean, it's a difficult spot for the Big Ten. I haven't, even though I have said North Carolina, Virginia to the SEC, I think that's what's going to happen. I have never once said the door is shut on the Big Ten. They're not going to give up. They're going to keep going. That North Carolina piece has to move first, I believe, before the Big Ten does anything else. They've got to know if they've won or lost on North Carolina. In part to what you're saying, the Mid-Atlantic region. It's maybe there's a scenario that Duke is working it. I can't say anything more than that. I guess I might have said a little bit too much on a show a few weeks ago. I'm not in real trouble, but I gotta. Duke is really, Duke is going for it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Greg, and to Duke's credit, and they do deserve credit for this. They have maintained their basketball excellence. I know it's only been a couple of years since Coach K retired, but you can see the program still continuing to put out a dominant team, and anything can happen. I mean, who knows? They could evaporate, but it doesn't look like it's evaporating. It looks like they're going forward with the same kind of steam that they had under Coach K. And so, I mean, to me, that argues with that kind of result. That argues that they need to be in the P2 somewhere. And I'm just trying to make the case that I think the Big Ten needs to go after them if they can get them. Because if they don't, Greg, I guess like maybe the nightmare scenario would be that down the road, NC State and Duke and Virginia Tech end up in the SEC. And then, then that would leave the Big Ten completely blocked out of those states. And then it puts Maryland at risk.
Mm-hmm. So
that's just untenable. They have to do something in the Mid-Atlantic, and that was really the point I was just trying to make.
Yep. I agree with you, sir.
All right. Hey, Greg, thanks a lot, Greg. Keep up the good work, and I'll talk to you later.
You got it. Appreciate it, Tristan. Great call.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
We've got some breaking news. I'm just going to read you a little bit of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Nico Amaliva on a jet airplane. Latest on QB Future, ESPN. There is not a market for him. Tulane is not interested. That was just reported by On3. Tulane is not interested in him. Multiple sources have told ESPN that Amaliva camp is seeking much more through the portal than the $4 million they hope to earn with the Vols this year. The read after talking to sources, however, is that he's unlikely to find a situation that gets him to that number. I think he has zero market, said a general manager at a Power 4 school. It would be interesting test of how smart and disciplined colleges are in looking at him. There has not been a flood of immediate interest in Amaliva. Notre Dame, USC, North Carolina, UCF have not expressed interest, significant interest. Big paydays come from leverage. There appears to be little out there. SEC schools prohibit immediate eligibility for players who transfer within the conference. The Irish are in the middle of a three-man competition. We talked about this. Steve Angeli, CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie. Notre Dame the Tar Heels are focusing on South Alabama, Gio Lopez. UCF has Amaliva on a jet plane connection with quarterback coach Mackenzie Milton. But the Knights have already brought in Indiana transfer Taven Jackson this offseason and are not expected to be in the mix. UCLA has brought in Appalachian State transfer Joey Aguilar. It's worth noting that the Bruins had a commitment from Amaliva younger brother Madden before he flipped to Arkansas. Absolutely zero interest, another Power 4 general manager said. This is a terrible time, said an industry source familiar with the quarterback market. You're setting up yourself to fail. You are so late. You get no spring ball, all new receivers and a new system. The kids being paid a lot of money are already in the system. They're 4 months into it. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news, breaking news. There is so little interest for Nico. So I don't know what's going to happen. And we got a report from On3 just a few minutes ago. Tulane has no interest. Now, yesterday we gave you our mystery. There is a mystery team, PATC, and that is Maryland. So we're going to keep an eye on Maryland here at Peek Around the Corner. That was a little bit of nugget of information we gave you all yesterday. Okay, we are going to close it up. We've been on the air for an hour and 35 minutes. We usually go at least 2 hours, but I'm a very busy man today. I wanted to make sure we get this one done. Massive news. Keep your head on a swivel. Make sure you subscribe to us because we might come on later today. This is going to be one of those days we may do 2 live shows. I'm just giving you the heads up. Keep your head on a swivel. I wanted to make sure we get this one done. The North Carolina State, massive news. Tarheels Wolfpack earthquake. If you missed it, go to the beginning. We go through Brian Murphy's reporting of the last 2 days. $31.5 million. Both North Carolina and North Carolina State could be getting through gambling revenues in the state of North Carolina 2027 and beyond. It's part of the budget bill, and it looks like it's going to happen. It looks like it's going to happen. I appreciate everybody coming on in. I appreciate the incredible generosity of Mr. Ryan Willett, Preston from Greensboro, John Till, Gold Black 45. Thank you guys so very much for helping us keep the lights on. Great phone calls. I appreciate it. Rick and Tristan. Again, make sure before you leave, subscribe to our channel and have those notifications turned on. Because if we have to go live again today, we might have to, no warning is going to be given. No warning. So subscribe, have your notifications turned on, and smash that like button if you've liked our content today. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.